Welcome to Andy and Ari On3, presented by Wendy's. Ohio State has survived its trip to Happy Valley. Ari, a goal line stand in the fourth quarter, followed by the most maligned group for the Buckeyes, pretty much putting the game away. The offensive line. The question we asked all week: can these guys hold up? They're getting reshuffled. There's injuries at left tackle. They did it. And Penn State loses, and James Franklin still has not won another big game.
Yeah, this might be a long video, Andy, because we have two very different sides of the coin to discuss. You know, usually when we go live after a shocking loss, it's like one team failed, and we're talking about that one team. And it's like here you've got a huge win on one side and then more struggles on the other. And I think I have a different opinion of James Franklin than you're going to anticipate when we get to it. But the one thing that you have to say about this Ohio State team is that, you know, they talk a lot. And I've said that before. They talk a lot. And Ryan Day, you know, says, you know, it's not about words, it's about action. And when you have a team who doesn't play a great game, you know, has a lot of mistakes, lean on the one position group that we spent all week talking about, you know, being a deficiency in that final drive, but throughout the entire game, you know, it kind of changes your perspective of just the team and what they're potentially capable of. Now, I don't know that I think that Ohio State's going to go win the national championship all of a sudden. You know, I think they still have some work to do in terms of cleaning some stuff up, but that was a monumental win for Ryan Day. And honestly, I don't know if we respected enough about what that could have meant for Ohio State's playoff run had they lost. So definitely a nice win for them. Have Indiana still on the schedule. And it probably was a pretty cathartic way for Ohio State fans to watch them close out that game, going on that 5-minute drive where they just ran the ball down Penn State's throat.
I mean, that had to be amazing after last week wanting to throw things through their television as they watched them do nothing in the run game against Nebraska. And Donovan Jackson did a great job. Yes, he had occasional struggles with Abdul Carter one-on-one, but so does every offensive tackle who has to block Abdul Carter one-on-one. This is a guy, he's not a tackle.
Pretty impossible
he's an all-American
guard to throw somebody into.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're an all-American guard and your first assignment is trying to block a top 10 pick at defensive end, you know, you're going to give up plays. Like, the expectation wasn't that Abdul Carter isn't going to get sacks. He did. And, you know, there was one really big sack on a third down in the second half that stands out in my mind. But when you look at the, you know, ability to at least not let him wreck the game, which he's done so many times in his career, you know, that's a win. And then Carson Hinsman, too, is another guy who played a ton last year.
He was awesome.
A lot, came in, and I think he won his assignment, you know, more often than not. So, you know, I have some questions as to why Ohio State didn't land on this offensive line alignment during the 2-week period where they could prepare for Nebraska. But frankly speaking, that literally doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, they got through Nebraska. They got the W. Yeah, and they have it now. And it, you know, when Zen Mikulski comes back, if he does, it probably stick with this. Because this, and then you have a backup at left tackle, but they looked awesome on that final drive. Remember, when Penn State gets stuffed at the 1, you're like, well, that sucks for Penn State, but they've got Ohio State backed up to the 1. They're going to get the ball back. And they did not. Ohio State ran it down their throat. I mean, the 4-yard quarterback sneak on first down from the 1-yard line told you what was going to happen the rest of the series. It was incredible.
Yeah, no question about it, Andy. And, you know, I think that when you watch the game that you have a sense that Penn State's a very good football team, right? Like, I think you would agree with that. I think they're a very good team. I think their deficiency, obviously, at receiver might have made it hard for them to move the football.
Well, we'll talk about that later, too, because I have... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, though, Andy, is that, like, you know, it might be a dying breed in this sport where a team just has a bunch of better players than the other team, and those players are the difference. But I don't know if you got the sense watching this game, but like when I was watching it, I was like, I cannot believe this game is even, you know, within striking distance for Penn State for most of it, in terms of just the athleticism that was just all over the field at crucial positions for Ohio State, and it was just relentless. And I think Penn State has done a really good job under James Franklin during his leadership, for as much flack as he's going to take for this. Actually playing Ohio State very tough. Like, that wasn't an easy win for Ohio State. But I think that, like, when you talk about national championship contenders, I just think that there's still an extra gear there that Penn State does not have, and we knew that Penn State didn't. So, like, how do you frame your thought on James Franklin? We'll get to that. But, the reality is here is that was a big win for Ryan Day. Probably something that took a little bit of pressure off, in terms of getting a quality win on the road. And hopefully, for their sake, they can figure it out. So, definitely a huge win and one that I doubted. Like, let's be honest, we both picked Penn State in this game. I thought that Ohio offensive line was going to be the reason that, they lost a close, tough game on the road, and their offensive line was the reason they won a tough, close game on the road.
Yeah, it is incredible that they shuffled it up and found the 5, because it looked like they found their 5, because that is a really good Penn State defensive front. And I thought Chip Kelly did a really good job calling plays too. I thought he gave Will Howard a lot of answers early, allowed him to get the ball out fast. So if there were issues blocking, they made sure that Penn State didn't really have a chance to take advantage of them.
For sure. And like just the play designs too. Like there were a few of these play designs where, Ohio State was getting what it wanted up the middle, and then they would, fake run up the middle when Penn State adjusted to it, and then pitch it to Judkins. Like it just, they had
the little speed option was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and they did it multiple times. So like, I think Chip Kelly is very good at what he does. And like, the thing that we have to remember too, is that we're talking about a man who, while at UCLA was viewed as, one of the masterminds of how to design run offense, so the fact that Ohio State was a little bit worried about, what it could do with behind that offensive line, I think he did a good job of designing plays that took some pressure off that line. Also, too, adding the Will Howard designed run game, which, came into play on that final drive, giving Ohio State an extra blocker and you weaponizing the mobility of their quarterback in order to, move the sticks for those crucial 4 and 5 yard gains there at the end of the game. I thought was really well done too.
Yeah. Now, okay, you came away with a different feeling about James Franklin. I'm going to give you a different take about James Franklin and Penn State than, he can't win the big one, blah, blah, blah. This game was lost in the offseason. This game was lost when they let Keandre Lambert-Smith walk and they didn't go get a difference-making receiver in the portal. And do not say Julian Fleming here, because you had a body of work from Julian Fleming in the Big Ten. You knew what that looked like. You should have overpaid for a receiver in the portal. Because imagine if you'd had one. Because think about, until that deep shot down the right sideline to Tyler Warren, and then the next little toss to Tyler Warren that got another 30-something yards. What was their longest play from scrimmage? Was it like 15 yards?
Well, they hit that one.
They don't have
Tyler
anybody dynamic other than Tyler Warren. And if you're the defense, you just figure out where 44 is and bum rush him.
Yeah, and 44 also isn't the break a touchdown for 80 yards type of athlete. Like, he's very gifted, but that's not the person that, spreads the field for you. So your take on James Franklin then, Andy, is you think it's okay to hammer him right now?
Over that, I thought the in-game coaching was actually fine. And I was going to hammer him over the clock management at the end of the first half, but actually, when I watched it back during halftime, I'm like, no, I understand why he did what he did. He let the clock run down, because if you don't get that 4th down, you are giving Ohio State the ball at a really advantageous spot, and you're going to probably give away points. They got it where they had to throw into the end zone. Their guy had the ball in his hands. He just got it taken away from him. So I don't have a problem with that either. I thought James Franklin did a decent job of in-game coaching here. I thought where he lost the game was in roster management.
Yeah.
He should have gotten a dynamic receiver. And I don't know, like, Keandre Lambert-Smith left, and you can say, okay, well, he's not exactly lighting it up for Auburn against Vanderbilt today. Okay, that's fine. You could have let him walk. Go overpay for somebody really good. Because that is the difference between winning this game and losing this game, and winning a game in the playoff and losing your first game in the playoff. Because when Penn State plays another really talented team like this, they're also not going to be able to move the ball vertically. They're going to have to rely on these little, dink and dunk type things and their defense, which is fine against most opponents, but not fine when you get to where you're playing the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
That should have been addressed.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me, Andy, is Penn State has been a player away from beating Ohio State like 6 times in the last 10 years, right? Like this isn't like a new revelation. And I think you're absolutely right. He should have been able to.
But they knew that going into this off. Like
this
was a glaring flaw in an otherwise pretty great roster.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think that that's a fair criticism. So the question I have with James Franklin, this is how I think, is that like it is so easy to just like call him a choke artist and to pile up on the fact that he's not able to beat them and all that. But we have known and accepted that Penn State cannot, for the most part, assemble a roster that good, right? Like we're not expecting Penn State to ever have as much talent as Ohio State does on their team, right? Like, is that a fair thing to think? Or do you think Penn State should be situated talent-wise the same way Ohio State is?
I think they should be close, but I understand why Ohio State would usually have more.
I'm saying they're playing the standard of the Big Ten for the last 20 years, a team that has accumulated talent at a clip that only Alabama and Georgia and Clemson at their height could match. So why is the bar for Penn State's success whether or not they can beat the juggernaut that is supposed to be better than them? Like in this world, like as we are going into this 12-team playoff, like Penn State's season is far from over. And they played a tough, closely contested game at home and lost by 7 to a team that we thought was going to win the national championship this year. It's like, how much can your brain actually change your thought of like what to think of James Franklin when you just lose to a team that has more good players?
I don't think he's a bad coach. Like, I don't. I'm not saying fire James Franklin. I'm saying James Franklin, the next time you have this situation, which is going to be this offseason, go get some receivers.
But I just feel like James Franklin has put Penn State exactly where it's supposed to be. Like this is a team that's probably still going to remain in the top 10.
That's not where Penn State fans want to be. Penn State fans care just as much about football as Ohio State fans do.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying that they don't. That's not my point at all. But I don't know if the ultimate judgment of James Franklin comes down to whether or not they are good enough to beat Ohio State. I don't think that's rational. I think you have an 8-1 team that is most assuredly, from the path that they have moving forward, probably going to make the playoff this year. And, as much as I've lamented the fact that Penn State gets to get in now because of the expansion of it, like this is what they are. And if they go win a game or two in the playoff, and they have a chance to do that, I think, isn't that exactly what Penn State, like, aren't you achieving expectations? Like, what are your expectations? We have to like,
as our producer River points out, though, that's how we judge Ryan Day with Michigan. Aren't we saying the same things about Ryan Day with Michigan the last 3 years?
Ryan Day's inability to beat Michigan the last 3 years is an underachievement. I think beating Ohio State is an overachievement for Penn State. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not the same.
But I think it should just be an achievement. Penn State should be good enough to beat Ohio State some years. It shouldn't take 10 years every time Penn State beats Ohio State.
Yeah,
it shouldn't
take
that long.
And I'm not saying that like it's inexcusable that it's not inexcusable that they've gone since 2016 because we are like coming up on a decade now. And boy, do I feel old because I was at that game. I am saying that like in this isolated season with the team that Ohio State has and the team that Penn State has, like Penn State's like realistically not supposed to win. You know what I mean? So when they don't, you don't learn.
Then they need to change that. They need to reframe your expectations by being better, by building a better roster.
Let me throw the back at you then.
We're in the era where Vanderbilt can go get a quarterback and then go toe-to-toe with Alabama. You're saying Penn State, which has had really good rosters, but not as good as Ohio State, can't get just a little bit better.
I'm not even saying that that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't feel like killing James Franklin over this. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be held responsible.
This game. I think he wasted an opportunity, and maybe he didn't, because he's going to get another chance. Like, they're going to make the playoff. Let's talk about the playoff situation now. So let's look at Penn State's remaining schedule, and Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland. They should win all these games. Now, obviously, there are always weird November shockers, but they should win all these games. At 11-1, with a 7-point loss to Ohio State, you're probably riding that 8-9 line. So you may have a home game or you may go on the road, but that's a great opportunity. And you're going to play a good team. Like, you are going to play a very good team that is probably as good as you and probably not a whole lot better than you.
In your projection here, did you going into where you were thinking on Sunday when you did this bracketology that's on the screen right now? Did you have
that's
Penn State beating
from
Ohio
after
State
last week's results? Yeah.
In this projection, was that a win over Ohio State?
Yeah. It was thinking they might be. I didn't know who was going to win, but yeah, I probably should have put Penn State higher if they were going to win, because you probably would have wanted Penn State at like 5 or 6, because they would probably be your Big Ten runner-up in that case.
You know, it is kind of funny, but it is possible that Penn State's medicine for losing today just means more games against really good Big Ten teams in the postseason. You know, and against teams that they didn't play in the regular season. So,
we could see the Penn State Indiana game, like
exactly
that isn't scheduled.
But yeah, like I feel like if you even swapped the Ohio State and Penn State positioning 9 and 7 there, which I think would be rational after that game, that like I wouldn't results.
Penn State much from that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like the results of this game, though big and important to the individual like hearts of the Penn State fans, doesn't really change much. Like Ohio State preserved itself, but I don't think Penn State lost anything really. Now they have no margin of error moving forward because they can't finish 10-2 now, but they are still like exactly where the projections put them. So whenever like a team just goes from what are they? Oh, they're exactly what we projected them to be. Like, I don't think that that's a failure. That's my only point. Like they are. And
I don't think they failed. I think they've done pretty much exactly what they've been doing. But I think that Penn State fans want more than what they've been doing, and they're frustrated with what they've been doing.
That's what I want to throw at you, and I didn't get a chance to. I'm going to just throw it at you. And I have to look this up. I might write about this. But what year did James Franklin get the 10-year God contract? Was it 21?
Oh, gosh. I don't even remember.
I think it was 21 or 20.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was around the Mel Tucker
It was around the pandemic, yes.
So at that time, when Penn State offered him this deal, wasn't Penn State like not even as good as they were today when they did that?
No, they were not. They've gotten better. And that's a good point, Ari. That is because they have slowly gotten better. It was Producer River, November 2021 gives us the info. Okay. They have slowly gotten better. So to your point,
that's what they signed up for.
If this continues, they might get to where Ohio State is, especially with the way the sport's changed.
I mean, and also
so too, like point.
We also spend a lot of time talking about how the expansion of the playoff is going to give more runway to more teams to play in high leverage games at the end of the year that everybody's going to be watching, which would in turn help recruiting. Like if this is the first year of the 12-team era and Penn State gets to benefit from that, like has Penn State been given enough of an opportunity to get better without having the fruits of that labor? You can't spend the last 2 years or year and a half talking about how much better the 12-team playoff is because more teams are going to get their shine without even letting it go through the first year and not anticipating that Penn State might benefit from this game or this season later on. Like that's the thing too.
Now I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about my criticism here. Like all these players have agents now. Like agents want to put their player in the best possible position. How many agents of good receivers, maybe at the group of 5 level or at a power conference team that is not necessarily a playoff caliber team, are going, hey, you know what we could do with you? We put you in Happy Valley next year. And you could be a superstar because you could be the one who changes everything.
Yeah. Like, and it's a great place to be. You know what I mean? Like that's not and they had a quarterback, right? Like I thought Drew Aller played pretty well in that game. You know, considering
so our colleague Jesse Simonton is watching. And he's written us a column here. James Franklin has paid $10 million, and he continues to underwhelm compared to his peers. The foundation of this team is the best recruiting class with a bunch of dudes headed to the NFL. If we're going to kill Ryan Day for just beating up on so many bad Big Ten teams, then Franklin deserves just criticism for failing to get it done again at home against a beatable Ohio State team.
James Franklin is paid $10 million a year, commensurate with the results that he had when he signed that contract.
Yeah, Mark Stoops is also paid about that much too. So
he wasn't.
That's
like,
the problem.
I see what he's saying. Like I'm not saying that like you're not like Penn State fans don't have a right to be upset or annoyed that this keeps happening. You know what I mean? Like it's a really really tough situation. But James Franklin is not paid $10 million a year to win the national championship. You want to know why? Because he hasn't made the playoff in his entire career there and signed a deal.
And they're okay with it.
8 or 9. They were okay with it. When you sign that deal, you're okay with it. You want to know why? Because it's that same galaxy brain type scenario of just like, hey, if you got the wrong guy and it's not James Franklin, we could be 6-6. And the fear of that, And like, honestly, if you go back in time, like, I think that what the administration wants and hopes for this Penn State football program is not in line with what the fans want. I think the fans do want them to beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten once every 4 to 5 years. I think that's a rational hope, and it seemed like it was a potential, possibility this year with the team that they had and the way that they started. But like at the same time, too, you're playing a team that spent more than $20 million on their roster. Like 2 years of James Franklin's salary to assemble the players he has to beat. Like
Penn State pays players too, though, Ari.
No, I know, but
and they got people who care about football, and they can spend money too. Like I'm tired of the excuses that Ohio State does this and Penn State can do that. They just have to decide they want to. So
I know, but in the world of NIL, if you're criticizing a coach, Andy, don't you have to take into account who they're playing and what they are built with? If you're not, like, is it James Franklin's fault that Ohio State spent 3 times as much money as they did on their roster?
Yes. It's his job to convince everybody at Penn State to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess if that's how deep you want to get with it, then I'm with you. But, I'm not going to write a column about how he's not a good enough politician in the offseason. Like, that's like, it's a hard thing to do.
I'm going to write a column about how he didn't build this roster to win a Big Ten championship, and he needs to start doing that. How about that? How's that?
How about 2 Penn State columns after us?
Wow. Well, shouldn't one of us praise Ohio State's offensive line? I guess
after I nail Ryan Day, I should probably I'll do that. Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
Well, I'll be the homer. Let's shift back to Ohio State because we have talked enough
about Ryan Day.
Yes. This was a good coaching job. Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, good coaching job. I know you say they should have figured this out before the Nebraska game, and they probably should have, but they still won that game. And now I feel like they're in a pretty good position. Like, they should be able to beat Michigan. I really can't wait to watch the Indiana game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But honestly, they could lose that game and still make the playoff. And look at this Ohio State team with this roster. And if the offensive line is going to be good, like it was today, it is going to be a very tough out in the playoff.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you 2 questions. One, perception and narrative, right? We talk about this a lot. We know what the narrative of James Franklin's going to be. It was the narrative coming into the game, and it will just continue. Ryan Day's is like this. I think that Ohio State fans hammer him more than casual fans. I think it's very easy. Like, James Franklin is at a place right now where casual fans who don't root for Penn State are actually making fun of him.
Yeah. Casual I don't know fans, that can't imagine being upset with the amount of success Ryan Day has had. Ohio State fans do because their standard is justifiably absurdly high.
So my question that I have back to you, Andy, is where were you? Because I'm the one who wrote the column. I never got your opinion on it. Where were you on my opinion last week of they haven't been good enough under his leadership from the beginning? And where are you after this game?
I think it's a fair criticism, and I don't think you get an answer until the end of this season. Like, let's find out, do they win the Big Ten? Let's find out, do they advance deep in the play? And I don't think they have to win it. I realize everybody says national championship or bust, but the fact of the matter is once we get to the semis of this tournament, it's going to be really good teams playing really good teams, bounce of the ball, turnover luck, all that. So it's like I said, when Kirby Smart didn't have a national title yet, you keep going. You keep getting bites at the apple. You keep getting cracks at it. You're doing your job. You're doing it correctly, and you're going to break through. And that's how I feel about Ryan Day. Like, you keep getting bites at the apple, you will eventually break through.
Yeah. Okay. How many bites do you get? That's the next question. Well, but I guess it doesn't matter.
That's the question. And like John Cooper got his answer. Now, that was a very different era of college football. I don't know that he would have gotten that many bites in this era. But yeah, because the fact is, Ohio State has never been bad, no matter who the coach was. So if you're feeling like that person's not giving you what you want, you probably are safe in thinking that the next person might.
Because it's been 4 years. Like, it's not like it's a year of bad, result. Like, I mean, it's been 4 years of.
They haven't been bad. They've been right there. Like,
no, but not being bad isn't the standard. They've been fine. Yeah,
but they might still listen. This team that we saw today that made great improvements on its offensive line when it had to for a huge game to win on the road. Got to win. And it might win a national title because...
Well, that was my next question. Question 2, Andy, was, does your perception of Ohio State's ability to win the national title this year change after that?
Yes, because I saw the offensive line play really well without Josh Simmons. And that's the thing. Like, I didn't appreciate truly how important he was to this team. And smart people like you who follow Ohio State very closely and the people who cover the team said when he went out against Oregon, like, this is a bad, bad deal. And I didn't appreciate it fully enough. And I certainly appreciated it watching the Nebraska game. I was like, oh my God, this is bad. But now, what I saw today, Penn State's got a really good defensive front. What Ohio State put on the field today could go toe-to-toe with most of the defensive fronts that they're going to see in the playoff.
Mm-hmm. And that's not accounting for improvement that you would have naturally over the course of time
playing with this. Yeah. This five's only been together for a week. Like,
yeah, and playing your best offensive lineman that's not injured out of position is a rough look. But he could be playing really well by the time they're playing games in January. But
I didn't think it was a rough look for him. They had to help him out with one of the best players in the country. Like, yeah, if they have to play Georgia in the playoff and he's got to deal with Mykel Williams, guess what? Even first round tackles get help with Mykel Williams.
For sure.
So
I was going to ask something else and I just lost it. So just talk for a second. It'll come back to me.
Oh, I will vamp. No.
I got it.
I got
it. Did Ohio State just punch its ticket to the playoff, or do you still think it needs to beat Indiana?
Oh, that's a good. I think so. If you've got to win on the road against a playoff team, because you and I now we will not know until Tuesday night what the committee thinks of anything, because we have not seen the committee deal with this yet. So we don't know exactly how they're going to treat this stuff. But I do think they like quality wins. At least we've seen that in the past, that they care more about quality wins than losses, and they care more about who you beat than who you lost to. And so beating Penn State on the road, if this Ohio State team ends up here with a win against a Penn State team that finishes 11-1, yeah, I think that would carry them even if they're 10-2.
Yeah. Because I thought there was a chance, like people were saying, that if Ohio State were to lose to Penn State today, then they would have a really solid chance to make the playoff, but it's not a guarantee. But you are kind of just flipping the games now, because now they're going to play Indiana, and Indiana is,
if you lose to Indiana, you might be losing to a 12-0, 12-1, 13-0 team, depending on, because Indiana would make the Big Ten championship game. And we need to talk about that, because this does, we think, clarify the Big Ten championship game picture, because Oregon keeps winning, they're in it. And if Ohio State keeps winning, they're in it. And if Indiana keeps winning, they're in it.
That's right. Yeah.
So it does make that a little easier to figure out.
Yeah, Indiana's actually losing to Michigan State with 5 minutes left in the first quarter, 3-0, and Michigan State's in the red zone. So
that game is for a spittoon, Ari. So big stakes.
I think that, like, I'm just getting this feeling, and Miami ended up pulling it out, but I was watching the Miami game at the same time as the Ohio State Penn State game, and it just feels like today's got that feeling about it. Like, I think that we've got
I'm watching the end of Vanderbilt Auburn right now, and Vandy's up 17-7 with 2:26 to go. Auburn's trying to drive down the field and desperately trying to score. There's some stuff in the air. Now, I realize I picked Vandy in this game because Diego Pavia beat Auburn at Auburn last year with New Mexico State, but still, this was not the way I thought it would play out. And I thought the Ohio State Penn State game did play out. Like we said, I think you said it in our pick show. You said this under feels really good. And that's exactly what we saw.
By the way, the under should not have hit in this game. Like if you were
No, you had a ball fumbled over the pylon. You had what looked like a touchdown that turned into an interception in the end zone.
Six.
Yeah,
those are
pick
all
six. Yeah,
you know, there's a lot of things there that you know, the under wasn't supposed to come out to play today. But yeah, no, it was a good win for Ohio State, and I think you know, the thing that stinks about Ohio State's schedule is now you got to wait 3 more weeks before they play somebody else with a pulse. But for the time being, I think they should feel pretty good about their positioning, and you know, hopefully they can take a deep breath. And you know how nice Ryan Day is. It's like maybe he can just like not feel like he's going to keel over for a week. You know, I cannot imagine
that part of it well.
Of relief that he must have been feeling when he finally got into the tunnel there. So yeah,
Auburn just missed a field goal, by the way.
Are we going to sit right here and wait?
I think we do a separate video if we want to do that. We can talk about that.
We just had a half of an episode on this reaction. So let's watch the end of this game and then we can discuss whether we're coming back.
It was a big game. Thanks so much for watching. By the way, come back 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, Saturday night. We're going to recap all the games, break it all down, tell you where it all lands in the big picture. We'll take the 30,000-foot view. And of course, we are on every Monday through Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, right here on the On3 Sports YouTube channel. So subscribe. Hit that like button. By all means, mix it up in the comments. We got some fun commenters. So this is going to be it's going to be a good Saturday. It's first window was good, and it's not even over yet. We'll talk to you soon.